Jim Carrey unlocked the power of yes in his film Yes Man. I guess it was, 10 years ago, 15 years ago? And since then, yes has been considered, well, actually, I guess I shouldn't give too much credit to the movie, but in general, yes has been associated with such a powerful term in progression in life. And here I am to tell you that yes may not be the best thing for your business. In fact, sometimes the best thing you can say is no. Hey, I'm Blake Benz. I'm the host of the Good Advice Podcast, and you're going to find some good advice on today's show. We love talking business, entrepreneurship, the simple steps you need to take to actually grow and scale your business. And there's not a lot of fluff on this show. We're not going to get into theory of it. We're not going to get into high-level conversations. We're just going to get into the nitty-gritty, what you need to know to actually grow your business. Now, today's topic of conversation, the power of no. The times you should say no, the times that you should let people know, hey, I'm not going to do that, I can't do that, or I shouldn't do that, and how it actually leads you to having better customers long-term. Before we dive into this conversation, though, we do have a word from one of the amazing businesses that sponsors the podcast. If you ever thought about advertising on the show, you can always reach out, Blake at goodadvicecoaching.com, or hey, support our Patreon, patreon.com/goodadvice. For as little as the price of a cup of coffee, you can support the podcast. I'll be right back soon. Looking forward to getting to this conversation. Be right back.
Have you ever put out some content or run a new advertising campaign or tried to launch a service that you just knew had magic to it, and then you were shocked to find out that no one seemed that interested in it? Maybe even felt downright depressed thinking, what is going on? Did I mistype something? Did something go wrong here? There has to be a reason why people aren't latching onto this. You know, those moments where you know you have lightning in a bottle, and yet it seems like people just aren't getting it. Well, you might need to hire a marketing company that can help you take your business to the next level. I want to tell you about Acelity Marketing. They're the marketing company that B2B SaaS companies can count on, and they help them grow faster with bold sales and marketing processes that actually work. See, it's not about creating content and then praying that please let me have a sale today. It's about trusting a business that's actually different because they have over 10 years of hands-on experience working with B2B companies. And remember, it's the outcomes that count. The results speak for themselves. That's why I trust Acelity Marketing. Go to accelitymarketing.com to find out more.
All right, let's get into it today. So it's been this is a timely conversation for me. First of all, how maybe you get on YouTube and you have I don't know if you ever have a YouTube binge where, you spend 30 or 40 minutes on there and one video leads to another video and what have you. But I've noticed that over the years, or especially over the last several months, I can always know the kind of content I've been looking for or been watching, because my recommended channels are always all about that kind of stuff. Well, something else that I've noticed about YouTube are these YouTube shorts where you get a random scene from a movie, and they always have the same song, by the way. Well, I guess I'm a sucker for this kind of stuff because this is the kind of stuff that I typically stop scrolling to check out. And then the algorithm feeds all these movie scenes on my main page. But one of the films that popped up was this scene from the movie Yes Man, where Jim Carrey, if you don't know the premise of the movie, Jim Carrey is I think he's a bank teller, or he's worked in this bank for forever, kind of a deadbeat guy. And he meets an old friend who has climbed Mount Kilimanjaro, who has basically changed his life because he met this guru who was unlocking the power of yes to people. And his old friend's man, here's a ticket. You gotta go to this conference. And the guy's no, I don't want to. He's you can't say no. Go to this conference. It'll change your life. You got to do it. Okay. And the movie's all about what are the limits? He's not allowed to ever say no, and it's a comedy. But anyway, I guess it's supposed to be an inspirational comedy, or I don't know. I've actually fair disclosure, fair disclaimer. I've actually never seen the movie. I've just seen like 5 or 6 different clips. So it could be like a totally junk movie that it's like, why are you even talking about this, man? Or, maybe we have like the 3 people who like adore this movie and they're like, yes, I will forever be subscribed to this podcast because it's getting mentioned. All that to say, this movie popped up. It was on my feed a few weeks ago. Well, then on Tuesday, I was subbing in for a BNI meeting, and a guy got up and was talking about the times that you should actually say no. And I thought this was pretty good business advice. I thought this was something that was pretty timely, and I thought, hey, that's interesting. That actually lines up with what I had seen on this Yes Man clip, or rather, it was opposite it, but it was a nice counterpoint to what I had seen. Well, then something else happened later in the week, and let me actually pull up this email. I didn't have it ready because I didn't think I was going to talk about it, but let me go and grab this email real quick. So I had a customer come to me, and with Podcastable, there are, as you can imagine, like in the podcasting world, there's all sorts of programs and AI and services and what have you that can help you, manage your show, launch your show, whatever it is. Okay. One of those is Descript. Descript is a very popular mainstream platform. I would say it's one of the most popular like editing tools that are out there. I personally don't use it. I personally don't really like it. And I've always preferred to do my own editing on my computer locally. I have used Audacity, which, by the way, is a free program. If you're looking to do podcasting, it's a really easy to use free program to like get your feet wet. And then I also really like to use DaVinci Resolve, which is a video program. Oh, and actually, now that I think of it, DaVinci is also free. You can get a free version for it. And it's just DaVinci. It's not like Adobe where there's all this bloat and stuff like that. But anyway, one of these programs that people use as an alternative to Audacity or DaVinci is they'll use Descript or Descript or however you enunciate it. I personally really dislike it. I dislike it because I feel like it's clunky. At this point in my podcasting world, I move pretty quickly from like an editing perspective. And so like when the timeline of the audio is glitchy or it's like not quite as fast as I want it to be, or it just doesn't, it has kind of like extra bells and whistles that I'm not really wild about. And not only that, it's like many other online platforms to like get into someone else's Descript, to get into someone else's workspace. You have to familiarize yourself with like what they have, what they've been working with, all this kind of stuff. And all this to say, I had someone reach out to me and they said, Blake, I want you to take over editing the podcast. Can you help me? I do all of my editing in Descript. I would love for someone to like join me and either teach me how to do it in Descript or just take it over entirely in Descript. And at first I was like, sure, I can help you, because I was very willing to help. Well, no sooner than I said, yes, I'd be happy to, I had kind of this awkward, like immediate follow-up message that was like, hey, actually, never mind. Sorry that I said yes and now I'm saying no. But as I think about it, because I had taken a few minutes to actually think about it, I was like, wait a second, I hate Descript. I hate Descript. Why would I take a customer to use Descript? It doesn't matter what the pricing is or what they're paying or what have you. I personally do not like Descript. So I emailed back and I said, hey, actually, no, I'm sorry. I shouldn't take this. I'm not a good fit for it. Hey, if you ever move away from it, here's what I like to use, and I'd be happy to collaborate with you, yada, yada. So, well, funny enough, this person, which I did not know, this person also hated Descript, but was using it. And so she was intrigued that I wasn't using Descript and was like, well, tell me more about what you do use. And, let's find an opportunity to work together. So that was probably maybe, I don't know, 3-4 months ago. I did her entire first season since then. We did a trailer for her, did all this stuff. Well, I got this email from her. Let's see if I can find it really quick. Blah, 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 blah. Oh, here we go. So along with this, I had also given her some like quick tips. I said, hey, if you ever want to end up doing this on your own, because I have a very open mentality with sales and business in general. I just like when I meet a competitor, when I talk to a competitor, I just don't process things in the sense of like keeping things close to the chest or being very careful or there's not enough business for all of us. I've just chosen, I'm just a pretty open book. And I don't even like when I talk to people, when I'm on like a sales call, I'm not even like, well, if you want to know what to do, you got to pay the invoice. And then, that's behind the paywall. I'm pretty transparent. I'm like, yeah, you should do this. And if you want someone to help you do it, you can hire me, what have you. So anyway, so I was a pretty open book to this whole process with this customer of mine. Well, I get this email and she says, we're chatting about like a processing fee for another thing. And she goes, hey, I've already learned a lot of ways to improve, streamline my podcast, and I'm so happy to be done with Descript. And then she said this. She said, Blake, you are a true gem for your honesty about initially turning my project down. That's what really made me want to work with you, and it truly motivated me to find a different program. I was really at a standstill for a while now, and now I realize that Descript is what was demoralizing me. I'm so proud of this first season. I'm looking forward to getting back in touch when I'm ready for season 2. Take care. Talk soon. So one thing we talk a lot about on the podcast is just genuinely doing good work, doing great work, understanding the value of a repeat customer. This person wasn't a one and done. I think we had maybe 3 or 4 different projects with this person. And at the end of all of it, here's a customer saying, you are a true gem. Wouldn't you love for your customers to say that about you? Wouldn't you love for your customers to rave about you? We talk a lot on the podcast about understanding that having a great business, this is so kind of silly to say, you don't have to be the best in the world at your job. Like, I am not the best podcaster out there. I make mistakes. Sometimes I have silly errors on even my show. I'm not the best podcaster. I'm not the best business person out there. I'm learning everything just like anyone else is. I'm just 6 years deep into this process compared to someone who's maybe new to the business world. So I'm not perfect at it, but understand what no did to this person. Now, I think some slimy salespeople out there, they will use no as a way to manipulate or trick or, what have you with their customers or their customers to be. It's kind of like whenever you're buying like a program online or you're buying something on like a digital storefront and it's like, buy in the next 3 hours before this deal expires. It's fake urgency. Like it's a digital product. The deal's not going anywhere, but people put that in because they know that fake urgency, it reduces sales friction. It causes people to be more likely to buy whatever it is that you have. So in the same way, there are people out there who use no in like a coy manner, and they use it like in a way, and I've actually seen this done before, and it's very cringe. They use it in a way that's like, oh, I don't know if you're ready for this program. I don't know if you're really the right kind of customer. And they do that to try to play on someone's ego to get them to fork up some cash. And then, by the way, when the program doesn't work, they then flip it back and they say, yeah, see, I knew you weren't a good fit. I knew this was going to be, up to, all this kind of stuff. So it's not about being manipulative. It builds on, I think it partners with a concept that I've learned myself from another great sales guy named Todd Capone. I've mentioned him on the podcast. I have a handful of salespeople that I really love to follow, that I've learned a lot from over the last couple of years. And by the way, if you're looking to really level up your sales game, these would definitely be people to follow yourself. One of them is Chris Do. Really enjoy Chris Do. I talked about him earlier. I just discovered him probably a few months ago. I really like his content. And I mentioned him on the show, and then someone listens to the podcast. I saw them at a networking event, and they're like, "I love Chris Do too." So, anyway, me and my friend Rachel, we have similar sales crushes on Chris Do. But another one I really like is Todd Capone. And one thing that's really great about Todd Capone is that Todd is all about transparency. It's all about being upfront and honest. It's about, and it's not about upfront and honest in the sense of a good way to think of this would be like pairing it with like the conversation on budget. Like I literally saw a post on Instagram where the person said, I never share the price. And his Instagram post was basically like, here's what you do when someone asks you how much it costs. And his whole thing was all about deflection, deflection, deflection. Do this, say this. And even like flipping it, like, well, why do you want to know the cost? Like, is it really about the cost or is it really about the outcome? Now, if I could get you the outcome that you want, does the cost really matter? Like all of this stuff that I'm kind of like, oh my gosh, stop, please. If someone asks you the price, please just tell them the answer. I was in a conversation with someone I was in a sales call, and I actually got into this conversation where, and I can't remember if I told this story before or not, but I asked, well, how much does it cost? And he goes, well, hang on. Let me show you a couple more pieces of info. And I go, no, I was like, bro, just tell me how much it costs. How much is it? What is it? What does it cost? So people are being taught not to do that, not to share the cost, and instead to go down like this rabbit hole of, how do I redirect and basically stretch out the conversation to come back to this sales point. Well, that's not what Todd Capone talks about. And it's something I really appreciate. Todd's perspective is you get to the meeting, you have a conversation, and from the get-go, hey, yeah, this, by the way, before we get into this conversation, this is typically what the price point looks like. I was in a conversation with, and I think I did mention this conversation on the last episode or a couple episodes ago. I got into a conversation, someone who's very young in their business. They said, Blake, I got to hire you. Seriously, I got to hire you. And I said, hey, just so you can know who I work with, they're typically way farther along in your business. And the price point's typically going to be around $5,000. And she was like, wow, that is way more than I thought it was going to be. And I was like, yeah, but isn't it great that like we got that out from the get-go? Where like now, you don't feel like I'm leading you on, and then I don't feel like you're taking advantage of my time. Now we just have it out there. And so we're both on the same page that for you, it's like way outside your budget. Well, now what we can do is let's take 15 minutes. Let's talk about your business so you at least have some insights. But more importantly, as you start to get more revenue, you can think about where you can direct that revenue to grow your business that's maybe at a cheaper price point. Maybe there's other people out there who can be much more helpful to you. So I'm a big fan of transparency. But even beyond this, I'm a big fan of saying no. I'm a big fan of people reaching out. I had a guy who I was in a sales conversation as a new customer of mine. He took me to lunch the other day. And so we're eating lunch and he goes, well, I got to get, and again, I love when people make these jokes, but he goes, I got to get some good advice. I got to get some good advice for my business. Well, we talked about his business a little bit and I said, hey man, I'm just gonna be really candid. I don't think I can help you. I don't think I'm the answer for you. And it wasn't like, again, it wasn't being overly humble. It wasn't to lead him into a longer like sales conversation. It was to be very upfront and honest. And this is a new customer. This is someone who's dropped a couple grand with me, advertising on the podcast. And so I want to protect that relationship. I want them to be a raving fan of mine. I'd love for them to be a customer for life. Not every customer is a customer for life, but I deeply believe in so doing a good job that someone wants to buy from you again and again and again. So I'm also understanding in the moment, hey, I could say yes to this and do this thing that I don't think I'm really the right fit for. But what kind of impression is that going to make on my new customer where our relationship is young, where we're still getting kind of getting to know each other, we're still getting a feel for our relationship? I want to really wow this person, which means I'm going to hone in on what is exactly my expertise and what it is I can really, truly do.
Now, understand what typically happens for many of us. The reason we don't say no, I think it's two reasons. One, I think sometimes we don't fully understand what is in our wheelhouse and what is not in our wheelhouse. So someone says, hey, could you also do, you do websites. Can you also do some email marketing for me? Yeah, they're both, I think I can. They're both digital, right? Yeah, I can do that, right? Well, if you haven't in the past done email marketing, you owe it to that customer to say, hey, that's not something that I've done before. Now, if you've had such a positive experience working with me with the website, I'm willing to learn it. I'm willing to figure it out. I'm willing to do it at like a beta price point. And if it is successful and it works, let's get an agreement where we increase that price to something we can agree on. But let's make this something that makes sense for both of us, But a lot of times it's like, oh, I've always wanted to learn how to do email marketing. I've always wanted to learn how to do that. I'm trying to give like other examples of this. I had another like related process. Someone reached out to me and they said, hey, do you do podcast host finding guests for podcasts, basically? I said, hey, do you go out and do you find guests for people? Like, would you be willing to, for me to pay you a fee for you to find me my guests for my show? Well, I mean, I know the ins and outs of podcasting. I've had probably 200 plus guests on my podcast. So could I find guests for this person? I probably could. I could probably do it, and I would probably do a good job. And I know how to vet guests. I have vetted so many people and figured out that person's probably not a good fit for my show, and gone through all those steps. I could certainly figure that out as a service. So for that one, it wasn't so much that could I do this or not? It was really, do I want to do this or not? And I started thinking, like, do I want to really go through the process of like pinging people and like finding people and tracking people down? And, me personally, it's not enough to just like connect people. I would want to go the extra step of making sure that the host and the guest have like the right calendar booked together, where they both know what time the interview is, and like confirming with both of them, hey, are we good? Because by the way, it's pretty notorious for a guest to no show, and even worse, there are many stories from my friends who've been guests on shows where the host has never shown up. The host just disappears, right? So me wanting to do it in an excellent way, I would want to go those extra steps and make sure that the guests are getting to know each other. Now, this could be a somewhat lucrative side hustle. I have a friend of mine who's paid for a service like this, and I think he paid like $2,000 a month for something like this. So it could be lucrative. It could work. But where I am currently in Podcastable and in my podcast and Good Advice, I just don't want to do it. And so I was having coffee with someone. This would have been, I guess, 5-6 weeks ago. They said, hey, would you be willing to just Podcastable do this? Can you find me guests for my show? And I thought about it and I said, no, I'm really not the right fit for that. It's not really something that we're doing right now. And then the last time that people don't say no, and this should be the scariest one for you. The times that we don't say no, it's because we can't, because we're desperate for cash. Our business is struggling. We really need the cash to survive. So someone asks us, hey, can you do this? And you're like, yes, I can do that, because I want to be able to keep the lights on. I want to be able to pay my rent. I want to be able to eat tomorrow. So yeah, I can do that. Or I can at least figure it out to the point where they would probably be happy. What I can tell you is maybe 10% of the time, this works out to be something incredible where you realize like a new niche or a new vertical angle, whatever, for your business, where you're like, I never thought I could make money doing this. 90% of the time beyond that, though, it is a burning pile of crap. It ends up being a train wreck because it wasn't in your skill set. It wasn't something you'd done before. It probably doesn't fit into like your overall suite of services, which, by the way,
if you're doing it for the cash because you're desperate, you probably haven't thought even about your suite of services and how they complement each other, and really how like an average customer maybe moves through your suite of services. So it leads to you being desperate for work, and worse off, it typically leads you to having not great customers. And the reason I call this a scary situation is because these things could be more damaging to your brand than anything else. And ask yourself something. Chances are someone is asking you to do this. They probably also know that it's not your skill set or that it's not the main thing that you do. And chances are they're asking because they think that you would probably do it cheaper than someone who only does that thing. They probably think that, you'd give them maybe a discount, or, they know that you have like a shoulder relationship to that area. And sometimes they have such a great experience with you in one regard that they're like, hey, can you also do this? And that's fine too. But more often than not, if you're desperate for cash and you're willing to take that deal that you shouldn't take because you're desperate for cash, it's almost always going to be a bad customer because they're going to want so much from you at a fairly cheap price point. It's why you said yes to it in the first place. It wasn't the best deal for you, but it was enough to pay your bills, so you said yes when you should have said no. That is the power of no. Understanding when something is a good fit and when something is not a good fit, and probably even more importantly to that, knowing when someone is a great customer and when someone is a train wreck of a customer. And I'll go ahead and tell you, they say that the higher you charge, the better customers you have. That's true, but you will still have sometimes that nightmare customer who pays an inexorbitant rate. One of my worst customers I ever had paid me 20-something grand over the course of a year to do some work with them, and they were a nightmare. In fact, we had the opportunity to re-up for a second year, and I said no. This is definitely not a good fit. It's not a good fit for me. I think it's best we maybe move on from this. So lean into the power of no. You may feel the pain in your wallet in the short term, but it's going to help you focus on having the right customer that you're doing the right service with long term. Hey, that's today's Good Advice podcast episode. If you're a first-time listener, what are you waiting on? Click the subscribe or follow button so you can keep getting good advice wherever you are. Don't forget, you can always support the show on our Patreon. You can reach out via advertising about the podcast. Say via advertising, about advertising, and reach out via email at blake@goodadvicecoaching.com. And other than that, I hope you guys do well this week. I hope you go out there and make a lot of money. Make sure you're saying no when you should. And then otherwise, it'll make those yeses so much sweeter. I appreciate you listening. Catch you later. See ya.